Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, homelessness in the UK is a problem every party has pledged to tackle, whether it be with more houses or more money. But what's the right thing for each of us to do when we walk past someone begging in the street? Should we buy them some food and a hot drink, or is it better to give them the money directly, regardless of how we think they'll spend it? The journalist Matt Broomfield thinks so, and here's his soapbox.
We're often told that we shouldn't give cash to the homeless, but I think we should give them money, directly and unconditionally. Don't just buy them a sandwich. They're not poor. They have the right to spend their money as they choose. Hi mate, how you doing? Okay, so. Have a nice day. Don't try to second guess if they're really homeless. If they're desperate enough to beg, they need it. Many street beggars are addicts. But addiction can only be tackled by raising people out of poverty, and cutting off people's only source of income is not going to starve them into seeking help from authorities they know will not or cannot help them. When the government says street beggars are refusing long-term help, what they mean is that the help on offer is not adequate. What homeless people need is free state-provided housing and fully funded psychological care. What they get is austerity measures driving them onto the street. Thanks to a poor state response, charitable giving and hostels remain lifesavers to many thousands of people. But big homelessness charities already receive millions from the government and private donors every year, while those deemed impossible to help die outside. Many structural barriers separate long-term rough sleepers from hostel beds. Critically, many of the foreign nationals, who make up over half of London's rough sleeping population, cannot claim benefits to access the charity-run hostel network at all. In fact, some major homelessness charities actively shop foreign rough sleepers to the Home Office to be deported. It is these same government-funded charities which push the narrative that kindness kills as they tout for your donations. Do not believe them. Apathy and austerity kill. Your kindness saves lives.
And Matt Broomfield joins us now, and also here in the studio is the Chief Executive of the homelessness charity, Thames Reach, Jeremy Swain. Welcome to both of you. Can I start with you, Jeremy? Why shouldn't people give cash directly and unconditionally to homeless people?
Well, for us, this isn't a theoretical issue. We've got workers on the street every night of the year going out in the middle of the night working with people who are begging on the street and sleeping rough. Now, the people begging on the street have usually come onto the street in order to get money from the public. And all the time we are losing people dying through overdoses on the street. So for my staff working on the street, this isn't something which is simply a theoretical issue where we can sip our Perrier water and think about it in those terms. We are losing people dying on the street, and our job is to transform lives, get those people off the street, get them into treatment. Often they are in treatment, and we need to change things. Now, 54 of my colleagues are former homeless people, and they can certainly tell you that they need change, we need change. And the real problem with the thing that Matt wrote actually was when he actually said in the piece that even if somebody is going to use the money for an overdose, still give it to them. I mean, this is just appalling and offensive to the people we're working with.
Well, Matt, you obviously want to come back on that. I mean, how you quoted approvingly, it seemed to me, someone saying if your money funds the final drugs hit, except that the person would rather be dead. Do you really stand by that?
Sure, well, yeah, this is a quote from, you know, another former rough sleeper, another former addict. And I think the purpose of including that is to make people interrogate exactly why they're not giving and why they have this standard that they would presume to know about someone, yeah, as a way of opening up this conversation more broadly. And I think when you say people are coming onto the street to beg, it's a fact that, you know, to get money, then it's a fact that rough sleeping has doubled since the implementation of austerity 5 years ago, quadrupled in some cities. And I don't think those people are coming on because there's more cash on the street. If anything, they're getting given less cash. They're coming on for much broader reasons to do with, you know, addiction is absolutely keyed into rising poverty, to austerity to benefits cuts to a lack of adequate housing, and these are the issues that we should be tackling.
And so however much work you do, Jeremy, you're never going to be able to counter or combat, if that is the case, the situation that Matt is describing for some people. So if someone wants to give money, should we make a moral judgment?
Well, you certainly do need to make a moral judgment, because by giving people money on the street, they can die. So we had a young woman who was living in one of our hostels. She came onto the street to beg one night from people coming out of the clubs in South London. She came back to our hostel. She had a bath. She had a seizure after taking the heroin, and she is dead. Now, Matt is not somebody who has to attend funerals and talk to the families of those people about why their daughter, son, mother, father died on the street.
But by the same...
What I do agree is there's some absolutely serious issues about poverty on the street. And we have high numbers of rough sleepers. We've got 1,300 people off the street. We need the public to work with us. There are many ways in which the public can help.
All right.
And giving money at the right place might actually be the way of doing it.
Well, I was going to say, in the sense that the person who gave her the money for that heroin very sadly caused her to lose her life, then you could equally say of the scores of people who die of exposure that everyone who passed by and didn't give them money has cost them their life in the same sense.
Well, absolutely not, because remember, most people... When I was last talking about this issue, or one of the last times I talked about this was 2 years ago, when the police were asked through a Freedom of Information request to give the percentage of people they arrested begging on the street who are actually housed, and it was 20%. So most people, only 1 in 5 is literally homeless. We have people coming onto the street to beg. Our job is to move people off the street into treatment, and just for the record, it can be done. This is all about people living long and fulfilling lives, not dying on the street.
But I don't think the way to help people into those long and fulfilling lives is to, try and create a hostile environment for people on the street where they're like, oh, well, there's no way that I can even survive here. And there are many, many reasons why people leave. But Matt, come out with us. Come out with us one evening, 2, 1 in the morning. We are on the street every night. We have lists of people we're trying to get hold of and meet. We will help people into hostels, in some hostels, in a safe, controlled way. You can still use drugs. I've spoken to many, many people in the last 2 weeks who are, out of the hostel system, and not one of them has said, I'm out of it because... there's so much money on the street, it's so great from out here. They give a number of reasons, most of which I think can be traced back to the fact that there's not enough money for hostels as a first response. And, maybe difficulties with caseworkers or, with people in there. There are many reasons why people leave hostels, and no one ever says, and I choose to believe them, that, they've deliberately left the hostel and come out onto the street.
Is there enough money being given to people to really act as a magnet for people to stay on the street for that reason, rather than going into the hostels that you and your colleagues are trying to persuade people to go into? Well, can I just answer that? And we're on the street every night of the year talking to people. You've come out to do an article, that's fine. We're the ones picking up the pieces when you've moved on to another piece. So yes, the money you can get on the street, you can in 2 hours you can raise £50. But let's remember, and they can get a hot meal and a hot drink with that money.
First of all, you can't book it. You don't need to book into accommodation with money because it's free on the point of access. But actually, in our services across London, Thames Reach has hostels where you can get food. In our day service, you can also get food. There's 30 soup runs giving out food at the top of Villiers Street on the Strand in central London. Food is not the issue. Changing people's lives, giving them some decent accommodation, helping them to solve their addiction problem is absolutely what it's about.
Do you not think that the money that is given, some of it to people begging or people who are homeless on the street, would be better if people were encouraged to give that to charities?
Well, I think in that sense, it's not a zero-sum game. There are groups that I support. With the charities, the point where I decided I felt I would no longer want to support the big charities such as Thames Reach or St Mungo's was when I heard about their involvement in providing a sort of a database of the location of foreign national rough sleepers to the...
This is factually incorrect. We have never at any point given away an individual's details to the Home Office where they can be picked up and taken off the street.
You shared a database of locations.
Data protection will prevent us from doing that. Our job is only to help people move on with their lives, and sometimes that involves working with the police, for example.
All right.
I was out 2 weeks ago. There were 4 people sleeping rough in the reception area of a police station, and we were delighted to help those people to get off the street.
Have you given money to people begging on the street?
I've done both, given money individually and to charities, but I think the 2 things we need to do, number 1 is we need to make sure local councils are building more council houses, affordable housing. That's the big thing. And secondly, now I am much more focused on giving to charities, because you've got to fix all these different pieces together. What you want is a roof over their head, something warm to eat, but also deal with their addiction, get them skills and training, and charities can bring all of that together. So
right.
that is what
But building more homes, as we have seen over successive years and with successive governments, takes time. In the meantime, should people stop giving money to people who are homeless on the streets?
I'd strongly encourage people to give their money to homeless charities, and I would also encourage, if you see someone on your street who you feel is in need of help, please give them some advice, give them a cup of tea, give them something to eat. But I would certainly recommend that people direct their money to homeless charities who understand this problem much better than we do. And the government has recently brought in the Homelessness Reduction Act, which I think is a good first step. I know that they're looking at a housing first model, which has been successful in other parts of the world, where you get people into accommodation and get them the services they're required to solve their mental health
But what do you say to Matt Brimfield, who says actually it's austerity that has put a lot of these people on the streets in the first place, and that's austerity of government?
Sleepers double.
What you've certainly seen in London is that you've seen, yes, I know that rough sleeping has increased, but a lot of the numbers of the increase have actually been people working from abroad rather than people who've been forced.
But is it as a result of austerity?
I think that's far too broad a way of putting it. Look, this is a time of record employment. This is a time when you have more people than ever in the workplace. You also have
rent's gone sky high.
In some parts of the country.
All right,
it has.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you, both of you, for coming in today.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.